Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys are all doing really well. So, tremendously laid back video today. It is Sunday morning, which typically I don't shoot on Sundays anymore because I want to use my day for just relaxation and reading and food prep and all of that kind of stuff. But we've had a really busy weekend, so no makeup, t-shirt. This is one that I got from Spirit Halloween this year, so this is the Cat Dimension one by Stephen Rhodes, and I love it. It's oversized and it's super comfy. Just out of the shower, I dyed my hair this morning. I have my white monster, which it's funny because Matt usually makes my triple shot latte in the mornings, which you guys know that I love to have on the weekends, and he accidentally made it a quad shot. So I'm gonna be buzzing after having my energy drink this morning. But I wanted to take a little bit of a break from the Yuletide videos and do a recent reads wrap up, because I'm going to be doing another one kind of towards the end of the year into the new year, so we can talk about my favorite reads. I was going to do my favorite reads right now, but honestly the books that I'm reading right now are really good, and so I didn't want to exclude anything from that. So we'll talk about the recent reads that I've had over the last couple of months. And then of course I'll do my end of year wrap up towards the end of December a little bit more. So great news that the books that I'm reading right now are really good, and I'm hoping that a couple of them will end up on my favorite books of the year list. So as most of you guys know, I've been really struggling with my reading, specifically this year, but even towards the end of 2024, I was really struggling with my reading as well. I haven't read anywhere near my goal for this year. But what I've found is that through Vamptember and then my witchy reads that I did in October, you know, I just wasn't feeling it. I wasn't feeling like I was reading anything that was really grabbing my attention. But when I switched back to reading mostly Gothic books, which we all know that I do read a lot of Gothic books anyway, and then with the spookiness and everything of the ones that I started reading kind of towards the end of October, it really captured my interest. So I'm super happy that kind of making that switch back into reading mostly Gothic books and ghosty books has really captured my attention again and really brought me back to my love of reading once more. So starting off way back in September when I read The House of 100 Whispers by Graham Masterton, and this one is about basically an older man that died and his family has to come to his estate to settle his will, and there's a lot of family drama in this one, which, you know, I'm iffy with family drama. It has to be done well and it has to really complement the story. This one had a lot of family drama in it. And basically one of the couples, so we have two brothers and like their families, and one of the couples, their son just disappears within basically the walls of the house, and they have to try to look for him, and it just kind of goes on from there, where members of their party and their friends and people that come into the story start disappearing into the house as well, and we're not really sure what's going on. And I read this one, like I said, back in September, and it was kind of when I had finally my medical clearance after getting my abdominal surgery over the summer. And one of the things that I wanted to incorporate into my kind of daily routine is going for walks. So I started like a 30-day walking challenge, and I was posting like every day over on Instagram, like pictures of me out on my walk, so it kept me accountable. And it really made such a big difference for me. For one, with my stress levels, it really helped bring everything down. If anybody doesn't know, I'm a project manager in my adult job, so really like heavy deadlines, a lot of pressure, that kind of thing. So it helped with that, but it also allowed me to get some reading time in. And it was fantastic to go outside and kick through the leaves, and you know, the air was starting to get a little bit crisp. I was out, you know, probably around 4 o'clock in the morning or so. And so this was the book that kind of catapulted everything back into the love of reading. And I really enjoyed this one. I would say I would give this one a 4-star. It was really great because it had the gothic elements, it had ghost elements, it had a family mystery, and it had a lot of occult that was wound in, and we all know that I love anything that has to do with the gothic that also has that occult element wrapped in. And it had a lot of folklore from that area in England wrapped in as well, and it was just fantastic because I could kind of take the elements that they were discussing in the books and then go research them myself and find out, like, you know, the folklore behind it and everything. So I love books like that, and I found that this one was really great at capturing my interest again, getting my mind off work and off other things that were going on in my life. And I really found it, as you know, it catapulted me into this feeling of like stress relief and something that I could do every day that I really enjoyed between my walks and listening to this book. The only thing that I will say, and what brought it down to a 4-star from a 5-star, was that about 2/3 to 3/4 of the way through the book, I was wanting it to be wrapped up. I was wanting it to be over. So it did kind of drag on a little bit for me, but it didn't detract from the story at all. I just wish it was a little bit shorter. And like I said, with books with a lot of family drama and stuff like that in them, it has to be done really, really well. And this one was, but like I said, some of it could have been cut out and condensed in a little bit more. But I loved the folklore and gothic elements, and especially the occult elements wrapped into this one. And I would highly recommend this book to anybody who's looking for those kinds of elements. And unfortunately, and this is where it gets into points of the year when I'm asked to be part of these readathons and stuff, that, you know, I was a host for Vamptember, and I was so excited for it, and I really promoted a lot of vampire books and stuff like that for people to pick up in September, but I didn't read any myself, and that's really unfortunate. But I've been just concentrating on trying to break through this this reading slump and really focusing on things that I love. So unfortunately, I didn't finish anything for Vamptember, but I did start Rules for Vampires by Alex Falks, who is a fantastic YA writer, and she's a fantastic person as well. But I just had to put it down because, like, I was really concentrating on my gothic reads that were starting to capture my interest again. And then my adult job kind of started blowing up in September. And it's been really, really hard over the past few months. So unfortunately, Vamptember fell kind of flat for me. It's really, really unfortunate. And but it's just one of those things. I'm happy to be involved, and I love my co-hosts, and I love promoting the books from Alex and Amy and everybody. And so I did stick to some movies during September. We did Dracula Dead and Loving It, and Bram Stoker's Dracula. What else do we watch? Dark Shadows, which is another family favorite, and a couple of others that, you know, it did help me just feel still like part of the team and part of celebrating vampires for that month. And then into October, I wanted to read witchy books for spooky season, for actual spooky season, I guess you would say. And here again, like I say, like, things are absolutely crazy. I was working a bunch of overtime and everything, so I didn't get to a lot of the witchy reads that I wanted to in October, and Matthew and I didn't get to a lot of the events that we wanted to get to in October. We had a very quiet Halloween, and again, it was concentrating on a lot of movie watching. But as far as my reading went, I had 2 comfort reads, so they were rereads, and 2 that were brand new to me, that both of them were really, really great. So as for the comfort reads, I did, and I said I was going to vlog during spooky season, and it just didn't happen. We were doing a lot of work on the house, a lot of renovation was happening on the library in October, and like I said, I was working a lot of overtime at work and everything, so it just didn't materialize. But I did pick up this one, the Little Witch's Black Magic Cookbook, which I said was a really great book from my childhood. And this particular copy was sent to me by Cameron Cheney a couple of years ago. I saw it in one of his hauls and absolutely lost my mind because I remembered it from my childhood, and he was kind enough to send it to me because it was so special. So this one is a book of recipes, basically, for little witches, and I remember making these recipes when I was younger, and to this day I still love cooking and baking and everything. So I did read through this one. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to make any of the recipes out of here. I still would like to pick this one up eventually again and make some of the recipes. But if you ever see this book around and you have baby bats at home that are, you know, you want to do crafts, there's crafts in here as well. There's crafts and cooking and baking, and it's not just for Halloween either. They do have Halloween recipes, but there's Mother's Day, Father's Day, Christmas, all that kind of stuff. So it was really comforting, and it was one of those things that when things were absolutely insane and we were doing so much painting down here and I was hunting for antiques and buying furniture and work was crazy, this one and the next one I'll talk about really did my heart a lot of good. So the next one that I will talk about, and if you've never read this book, it's the most fantastic comfort read, and you have to read it on audio because it does have singing and songs, and there's character actors and everything, and that is Lily Willy and the Mail Order Witch. And the only way you can find it, they do have it on Audible, just so you know, is that it's under the Internet Witch. So when I was growing up, she was a mail order witch, and she is still a mail order witch in the story, but they've changed it to the Internet Witch because of course people do their ordering online now. They should have just called her the Amazon Witch. But back in the day, of course, you know, she would have come through mail order. So basically these two kids, they don't want to clean their room. Their mom has asked them to clean their room and they don't want to, so they send their dollar in a mail order and they get a witch to help them cast a spell and clean their room, and they go on this fantastic adventure. And the witch is like really she's kind of clumsy and she can't get anything to work and all of this stuff, and they're singing and songs and everything that have to do with this adventure that they go on, and they all get on her magical broom and go off into this magical land, and it's just the most fantastic read, and it only takes about an hour or so. I read it over I think it was a couple of commutes back and forth to work, and like I said, it was the most fantastic comfort read, and it was, you know, I had it on cassette when I was growing up, and it was just everything that my heart needed at that point. And then as for new witch books that I read, I did read Slewfoot, finally, by Brom. So I've had this one on my shelf, I believe, for 2-3 years now. And you know, if you're watching this video, you probably already read it or you know about it, and it's one of those books like that almost everybody that I know gave it 5 stars. For me, it was about a 4-star read. I thought it was fantastic, and this is another one that I was reading during October when I was out on my walks, and it was fantastic. So if you don't know anything about the book, it takes place in like Puritan times in New England, and this woman, Abatha, she's a very independent woman. Kind of reminds me of the Witch of Blackbird Pond in a way, like with her personality and how she is. And she becomes widowed, and that's right in the synopsis of the book. It's not a spoiler. And she cuts an alliance, I guess, with this forest being who also has these other creatures and beings and everything that he has as friends. And the illustrations in this book are fantastic. So here's some of the creepy little creatures that are a part of the story. So you have like basically like a flying fish, this little dude, his name is Forrest, and there is Slewfoot there. So sorry about the glare. So the illustrations are fantastic, but this story is just over the top in folk horror, and it has all of those brooding, dark, witchy vibes, and this was another one that was really suiting that mood, that was giving me the spark to keep reading these kinds of books. And yeah, I don't know what's been up with me like since the end of last year. I've just been trying to find something that's sparking that enjoyment in my reading again. And you know, I usually read a lot of YA horror, interspersed with some adult and then vintage, and I still do read a lot of new books, and it's these types of books that are starting to really have me, you know, enjoy my reading again, kind of intersperse these comfort and cozy reads. And, you know, I was trying to do a few rereads this year, you know, and really find that enjoyment again. And I'm kind of coming into a new season of life now. We'll go over a bit of my health stuff that I was dealing with this year, but I'm coming into a new season of life now, you know, kind of into that perimenopause kind of stage. And, you know, things are changing, you know, what I like, what I enjoy, trying to be more mindful of having balance and things that are bringing me a lot of joy, not just reading for the sake of reading or reading for the channel or reading to meet a goal. You know, I haven't been doing those things as much anymore. And so it's been a real reckoning in the past couple of months. But getting back to Slewfoot, this one was fantastic because I wanted all the dark, spooky sort of vibes, those really, you know, just the unsettling horror that folk kind of brings, and Puritan New England during the witch trials and all of that. And they did such a great job in winding those witch trials into the story and having Abatha be such an independent woman. And in this one, there's a twist of revenge here, and it was fantastic. The whole end of the book was just, it was kind of a bloodbath, but it's one of those stories that you're just cheering them on. You're cheering on the witch to do her thing, and it was fantastic. It reminded me a lot of The Devil's Mistress in that way that I spoke about in my witchy reads recommendation video a couple of weeks ago. So this one was another one that really catapulted me back into my love of reading again. And kind of along the same lines, I did read finally The Lighthouse Witches by C.J. Cook. And this book was just fantastic. There was not a point in this book that I found myself disinterested or anything like that in the story. This is my first C.J. Cook book, and I will definitely be reading more from this author. You know, when you have point of view chapters that are between more than two characters, it can get very convoluted, you can get confused, and it gets hard to start following. But she did such a great job at, I'm assuming the author is female, I believe they are, but they did such a great job in having multiple POV chapters. So we had point of view from the mother, both daughters, I believe, and then one other character. And, you know, it was just fantastic. And I don't believe I've spoken about this book before. I'm kind of feeling like I did, but it might have been in my witches recommendation video that I spoke about this one. And it was right after I had finished it. And it's one of those ones that, like, again, it brought back that enjoyment of witch books, of horror books, of that type of gothic story. And if you don't know anything about it, basically this single mother, she's an artist, and she moves to a remote island in Scotland with her two daughters. And here again, we have a lot of family drama that's happening alongside of the story, but it adds to the story. It doesn't detract. It's, you know, I find that it kind of grates on my nerves after a while, and it didn't at all here. And basically what happens is there's a whole plot line, there's a whole storyline, and there's a lot of folklore wrapped into this one as well. There's folklore, the occult, symbology, all of that is wrapped into this story also. So very much like House of a Hundred Whispers. And it was great. And so basically the two girls, one girl goes off and she grows up, and the other girl actually goes missing when they're in this lighthouse on this remote island. And years later, I think it's 20 years later, they find the younger sister, but she's the same age as what she was when she went missing 20 years earlier. And it's this whole story. So you have stuff that's taking place in the past, and then in the present. And one character actually goes further in the past than what's happening with this family. So you have a lot of timelines, a lot of POVs, and like I said, a gothic story that has a mystery. There's occult, there's symbology, there's witches, there's folklore, all of those elements. And because of the way it was written, it was done really, really well. And it was I wouldn't say easy to follow, but you know, you didn't get confused at any point, and it kept you interested in the story. And a lot of times what I find with POVs is that I'll be more interested in one person's point of view, so when the other person is telling their point of view, you want to get back to the other side of the story. But this one, it bounced back and forth really smoothly, and I was interested every single time a POV ended and we went to the other person. I was excited for it to bounce back and forth. And like I said to Matthew, it's very much done like a really good TV show, where you can't wait for the next episode. That's really what this book was like. And I believe I gave it 4.5 stars. Now thinking back on it, I don't know why I wouldn't have given it a full 5. I might have to double check my Goodreads rating, but this one, you know, you will see it again on my favorite reads of the year list. It was fantastic, and I would highly recommend this book, but probably also checking out CJ Cook, because if her other books are like this one, they're definitely going to be on the top of my favorite authors, and someone who will be an auto buy for me to read their other books as well. And then coming into November, so at this point, I'm really starting to get the excitement back in my reading. You know, I was having a conversation with a couple of other booktubers in one of our group chats on Instagram, and it was one of the other booktubers that finally brought it up, but we were all feeling the same way. That we've all been very disjointed this year from our reading, from our channels, from community, from doing things together, you know, our live shows and podcasts and meetups, and really having that sense of community where we love to read, we love to spend time with each other, we love talking about books and movies and our channels and all of that. We're all feeling a little bit disjointed, a little bit burnt out, disinterested, and none of us want to feel that way. So I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in my 2025 wrap up, but I really feel that now that we've kind of uncovered that and uncovered that I'm very much in the mood for specific books, I'm starting to get that excitement again. And I've talked about that a few times this year, that I'm starting to get that excitement again, and each time it kind of fell flat. But I really feel like, you know, trying to ignore everything else that's going on in the world, and ignoring, you know, my responsibilities for a little while so I can get a bit of a break and enjoy something that I love. It was fantastic. So really coming into another book that I was very specific and very methodical in how I picked it, because I'm getting the enjoyment out of those gothic reads right now. So I went with The Last Apothecary by Sarah Penner, and I read another book by her earlier this year, I believe way back in February, which was The London Seance Society, and I liked it. It was okay, but this one I actually liked a little bit more. I loved well, I mean, the other book did have a feminist angle as well, but this one it almost had a witchy kind of feel to it, and I enjoyed it a little bit more. So I gave this book, I believe it was 4 stars. And the only reason was because I enjoyed the book itself, but the ending fell kind of flat. And this was another one where there was 2 POVs going on. There was a POV happening in the past. Actually, there was 2 people that were talking in the past, and then a situation that was going on with the present. So in the past, we have this woman who runs an apothecary, and she gives tinctures and stuff like that for wellness, but she also makes poisons for women to take care of their husbands. And it's kind of like a shady thing she has going on the side. And so basically she has to make sure that everything is kept under wraps, and that what she's doing on the side, you know, doesn't get out. And then in present day, there's a woman who is American, and she finds out basically that her husband is cheating on her, so she goes to England to get away, and she stumbles upon a mystery that has to do with the events that were happening in the past. So you have this dual POV that's going on again, but here I did enjoy the POV that was going on in Victorian times more so. Or was it Victorian times? It might have actually been the late 18th century. yeah, I believe it was the late 1700s that was going on. And you have this woman in modern times, and again, it's the family drama and romance and, you know, a marriage with problems and all of this kind of thing. So I enjoyed the stuff that was happening in the past a lot more than what was happening in the present. And I found when I was in the present POV, even though I still enjoyed the story, I was, you know, I was aching to get back to that other one. So that's the difference between this one and the Lighthouse Witches. So I didn't enjoy this one as much. And then by the end, even though, like, you know, she did bring it around and it was wrapped up well, it just felt a little bit flat for me. I wish it had gone in another direction, and it just didn't. But all in all, I did enjoy the book. It was a 4-star read for me. And I have to say, I will pick up another Sarah Penner again, I think. And I can recommend, you know, if you like those kind of Gothic kind of stories that take place in the past, 17th, 18th, 19th centuries, you know, I would recommend her as an author for sure. You know, it's nothing, I don't find her books anything spectacular, but they're good, they're solid stories, they're enjoyable, entertaining, and yeah, I enjoyed this one. And then last up, I did read Hidden Haunts England. I was reading selections out of this book over like months on my Kindle, and it was just kind of perfect because, you know, you could read one small, it's a book of short ghost stories. You could read one small section before bed at night, and, you know, you get the whole story from beginning to end. And I was just sitting down and taking my time going through it because it does have a lot of history wound in. So this is by W.J. Gilbert, who runs the Eerie Edinburgh channel here on YouTube, and they're absolutely fantastic. I love their YouTube channel, and I've loved all of the books that I've read by them so far. And I do have their new book as well. So earlier this year, or at the end of last year, I read Hidden Haunts Scotland. I just finished England, and I have already downloaded, or I pre-ordered actually, Hidden Haunts Ireland, which is out now as well. And what I love about these books is that it doesn't just tell you the ghost story. I know I've said this before, you know, but it doesn't just tell the ghost story. It goes into the history of the area, or, you know, the building, the dwelling, the area of where all of these ghostly happenings took place. And so a lot of the history adds to the ghost story because a lot of it has tragic history, war history, murder, revenge, all of that sort of thing. So it really adds to the ghost story. And what I find with a lot of ghosty books that I read, and I love in its own way, is that they just tell the ghost story of the area, but this one really delves into the meat and bones, and I love that because, you know, someday I would like to go to the UK, and so I feel like I'm getting a little bit more out of this book because it's, you know, telling the history of the area, and I know that once I do get over there someday that there's specific places that I'll want to visit. So like all of the other books that I've read from this author, and you know, their YouTube channel is fantastic. This was a full 5-star read. And I can't wait to pick up the Ireland version as well. So I would definitely highly recommend picking up their books, and check out the Eerie Edinburgh YouTube channel if you haven't already, because it's fantastic. And, you know, it is a big channel when you talk about in relativity to mine, with just like 1,300 subscribers, but you know, I'm surprised that he doesn't have more subscribers than what he does have, because it's just fantastic. And he has one of those voices that is just very soothing. He's very good storyteller. And, you know, if you haven't picked up any of his books yet, I highly recommend it. So there you guys go. Those are my recent reads that I've read over the past few months. Like I said, you know, you're probably not going to see any more wrap-ups on here that, you know, talk about 10, 15, 20 books. I mean, I don't think I've ever talked about 20 books in a wrap-up, but, you know, I'm just glad that I've kind of found my footing again with what I want to be reading. Between the end of 2024 and into 2/3 of the way through 2025, I felt really lost, and I wasn't sure what to be reading. I found like I was reading just for the fact of having something to post about, something to make content about, and I'm really starting to find that I'm coming out of that now, and it's been it's taken almost the entire year to be able to do that, but I'm so happy with the reads that I have had. So not really quantity, but the quality of the books that I've read is absolutely fantastic. So witchy reads, ghosty reads, we've got folklore and gothic feels and ghosts and all of that kind of stuff. And so I will definitely be continuing that trend into 2026, and I will be talking about my other goals for the new year coming up in a video towards the end of December. I wanted to make sure to get some more reading done before the end of the month because, like I said, I'm really enjoying the books that I'm reading right now. I have 3 on the go at the moment, which is typically what I do have before I came into this slump. So super excited about the end of the year. If you guys enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up and leave me a question or comment down below because you know I love chatting with you guys. But until next time, stay spooky, everybody. Bye.